I never could figure out why they shot him, because I know he wasn't going to resist. I think they were just angry that there wasn't enough money.
I think that they set Mr. Lebewohl up for a robbery, and I do think it's somebody that knew him. It wasn't just a random robbery.
I wish they'd find out who did it and let us all know. It's kind of an emptiness, you know, it's like a nagging mystery.
For the life of me, I don't understand how this case still isn't solved.
I'm in Manhattan in front of a deli with a history as vast as New York City itself. Famous names like Muhammad Ali, Joan Rivers, Joe DiMaggio, Jon Stewart have all eaten at the 2nd Avenue Deli. The deli was the American dream realized by Jewish immigrant and Holocaust survivor Abe Lebewohl. But on March 4th, 1996, Lebewohl's American dream turned into a nightmare when he was shot and killed just blocks away from his beloved deli in a crime that remains unsolved. For Inside Edition Digital, I'm Sal Bono, and this is New York Gritty.
Abe Lebewohl actually was the American dream. He came to this country in 1950. He was a shade under 19. And my brother said to my father and mother, how can I go to school? There's a young baby. We have to provide food for him. I'm going to work. And my mother and father told him, don't. We will provide for him. My brother went to work, and every week he gave my parents most of the salary that he made. In 1958, when he got married, my parents went and gave him a bank book, but I don't know how many thousands of dollars in it. And my brother goes, what's this? And they goes, this is all the money you gave us over the years. We didn't touch a penny of it.
Wow. Now that little baby, was that you?
That was me.
Wow. So your big brother was always looking out for you?
Absolutely. He bought me a tricycle when I was a little boy. Bought me my first baseball glove. Bought me a baseball, a bat, basketball, all these things. Because to my parents, that was wasting money.
Abe Lebewohl's generosity didn't just extend to his family, but to every person who came into the 2nd Avenue Deli when he opened it in 1954 on Manhattan's Lower East Side. The restaurant became famous for its Jewish deli staples like pastrami sandwiches and matzo ball soup.
Anybody who walked up the street, all they had to say is the magic word, I'm hungry, AB, give them a sandwich.
After school, my sister and I would go to the deli, we'd sit there and do homework. And I was amazed at the people who came in. He'd walk down the street and everybody knew him and he knew everybody. And it amazed me how it wasn't just Jews eating this food. Everybody was there. Everybody loved it.
My earliest memories were actually of his little deli, which was much different. It grew, but when I came to the neighborhood, it was just a little corner place with kind of a window. It was funky, and my memory it was more of a hot dog place.
What was Abe like as a person and as a father to be around? What was it like being his daughter?
So I had mixed feelings. I kind of resented that I had to share him with everybody. I felt like I was sharing him with the world. But considering he worked 7 days a week, sometimes 10, 12, 14 hours a day, he never missed a birthday party, he never missed a school play.
Abe Lebewohl loved the mark that his deli left on New York City. He was known as the mayor of 2nd Avenue and the Jewish Mother Teresa.
One of my favorite stories about Abe, God, there's so many. But this will show you what type of person he was. There were homeless people in the neighborhood on 2nd Avenue at that time. And my brother took care of everybody. He always gave them food and everything. At his funeral, there were a whole bunch of homeless people at the funeral, at the synagogue. And they were literally crying because Abe always gave them a sandwich, may have slipped them $1 or $2. And wintertime, he used to park the deli van on the street. And what he did was he left the door open so if they were cold, they could go inside and lie down in the van.
Wow. Wow.
That shows you my brother's character.
Sometimes I didn't have enough. He would say, don't worry, you pay me tomorrow.
Abe's employees seem to just stick like glue.
The counterman. He told me that he had confided in my father that his wife was infertile. They wanted a child desperately. And my father gave him money towards the adoption. And he told me that at that point, he had only worked for my father for 6 months. And the guy said to my father, I don't think I'll ever be able to give you this money back. And he said, you'll give it back to me by being a good father.
He'd say very often, the more successful businesses around me, the better for me. It brings people to the neighborhood. It's good for all of us. So he really helped everybody around him succeed, which was incredibly generous. Had real generosity of spirit.
Abe was loved and admired by all people of the Lower East Side, so it was especially tragic that he would die on one of its streets.
A place like the Lower East Side in 1996, what was that like?
You had a lot of crime in that precinct there, in the 9th precinct or in the 7th precinct. There was a lot of crime. There was a lot of homicides. It was the Lower East Side.
Back in those days, most of our business was in cash. This is kind of pre-credit card, and both of our businesses generated substantial amounts of cash.
Abe was doing what he did every Monday morning. He was coming here to the corner of 2nd and 4th to what was once a NatWest Bank to deposit the weekend's earnings. It is currently a Bank of America.
He was very open about when he went to the bank, and he was carrying the money in a canvas bag, and everybody knew it. It was kind of risky.
Somebody once said to me, for such a smart man, your father was foolish. Why did he do that? Why did he go the same time every day? And going to the bank was a social thing for him. I think he felt, totally safe. He loved seeing the people that he would see between 10th Street and 4th Street. But yeah, people have said that's insane that your father did that. But it was very much my father.
I didn't think of a robbery. I could imagine a heart attack. I could imagine any number of things, but not a robbery, not the way it happened.
Prior to the fatal shooting, Abe had been held up at knife point.
He was held up several times. I didn't realize how many times he was held up until after he was shot. I just thought it was once. I didn't realize it was several times. And I remember I said to my brother, let's hire a service to make the deposits. Why take chances? And Abe says, I enjoy going to the bank. I enjoy seeing the people. I enjoy talking to the people. I enjoy walking on the street, talking to the people as I'm walking. So everybody knew him. Mm-hmm. He says, it gives me a certain pleasure. And he said, what do I have to worry about? He said, I'm not going to fight anyone. I'm just going to surrender the money. That was his attitude.
Abe was killed? Unbelievable. Can't believe this. In a holdup.
Shot on the street in the winter.
I am truly amazed. I'm heartbroken. He just told me. I don't even. Speechless.
A gentleman was shot and removed to Bellevue. He's expired as of this time.
When you first heard what happened to your father, what was your initial reaction?
Oh my God. I thought he was invincible. I found out that he was murdered on the news. My kids were home from school. I was punishing my son. I was lecturing him. I took the phone off the hook so nobody could get in touch with me. And I heard that a famous deli owner was murdered. I couldn't process it. It didn't even occur to me that it was my father. Excuse me. People kept calling me and saying, how's your father? And I kept saying, fine. Why are you asking? And I called the deli, and the person who answered the phone was hysterical crying. And I thought, that's odd. Why is she crying? And I was like, can I speak to my father? And she said, call Jack. And it was I called Bellevue because then I started sensing that something was wrong. And Jack said to me, you need to come to the hospital, but take your time. So I knew he was dead. But it just, the outpouring of love just blew my mind.
For your children, your nieces, what was it like when they heard what happened to Grandpa?
Oh my God. They were in school, and the radio was on, and in the office, and somebody told the receptionist, you got to turn it off. His grandchildren go to this school. My mom was never the same after that. Never the same.
He supports 60 families. He's a charitable man. He gives to here, he gives to there, and he just doesn't deserve this. I mean, this is not what life is about.
When you first heard about the manner in which you died, what was your initial reaction?
Shock and anger. Which, by the way, the anger's still there, hasn't gone away.
It's 30 years later, and you just said something pretty poignant, which is that the anger never goes away.
Of course not.
But Jack, you don't seem like an angry guy.
I'm not. Because I have a lot to be thankful for in life. And I thank God for those things, those wonderful things. But this was a terrible part of my life, and I'll never forget it.
It saddened. I mean, a lot of people couldn't believe it, but it happened. So a lot of people came down to the deli to, pay their respects to the family.
You appreciated the love and support, but you wish it wasn't necessary. I didn't feel good. That's all I can say. It was a terror. It was the worst experience of my life, probably.
His funeral was one of the most memorable, impactful funerals I've ever been to. I was at the local synagogue on 6th Street, and it was literally a turn-away crowd. There were several hundred people who couldn't get in, who stood outside and tried to listen through the doorway. So that was it was very moving.
Jason, I don't want to bring on anxiety, but at any point when Abe was shot and killed, did you ever think this could have been my dad?
Yeah, it was a very eye-opener. It's a sad eye-opener, but it definitely brought attention to, anything, somebody could be watching you at any time and not knowing, noticing a pattern. And that was probably the case.
The only good thing I thought about my parents was that I said, thank God they're not here to see it.
Right.
Because they couldn't have handled it.
He was such a revered person in a neighborhood. Who would think they would do that? But obviously the village is the village, and there's still edgy, the characters roam the neighborhoods.
A private donor put up $150,000 for anyone with information leading to the arrest of who killed Abe Lebewohl.
He managed to drive his deli van down East 4th Street despite suffering 3 gunshot wounds, 1 to the head. He didn't quite make it to the end of the block when he pulled over and fell out.
He was shot in the left flank, the left buttock, and the left ear. And the money that he was going to deposit was in a bag, and that was taken, as well as Abe's wallet.
Detective James Piccioni worked the case for the NYPD.
There are witnesses who describe individuals in the vicinity of the bank prior to the shooting, and individuals who were either walking or running away from the van. The van was then driven down to the corner of First Avenue. A female was seen getting out of the van and running into a building off the corner of First Avenue. Residents of that building told me that somebody was ringing all the bells, trying to get into the building, trying to access the building. Witnesses also said they saw a woman on the roof of the building trying to go to different buildings to get out, to escape. We also know there was somebody seen behind the wheel of the van, and then people were seen running away from the van. There was 1 male or 2 males that was seen running away from the van and crossing First Avenue. But the focus of the investigation was on the .25 caliber Raven that was used to shoot Mr. Lebewohl, with 3 shell casings down inside the Lebewohl van. What we found out was that that gun was recovered the following day by a bus driver on the corner of 5th Avenue and East 96th Street.
The NYPD discovered that the same gun used to kill Abe was also used in other deadly crimes. One was a 1995 motel robbery in Elmsford, New York, where 2 people were killed. Another was a 1994 robbery in New York City where a drug dealer was shot.
So that gun's got some history to it.
Yes, that gun certainly has history, and it's not a good history. Unfortunately, no prints were recovered from the gun. But we do know that the gun was connected to all 3 of these crimes.
Now, wasn't the money bag that Abe was carrying also recovered as well?
Well, it was taken and it was recovered. Somebody recovered it on, I believe, 25th Street off of Park Avenue. Somebody saw the bag in the street and took the bag, and later found out that Lebewohl's bag was taken in his homicide, and they called the police and we recovered the bag.
The summer before Abe's murder, he was held up various times at knife point. Did those perpetrators ever get arrested, and did those people ever have a connection to his murder?
I don't think there were any arrests made in that case, and none of the names, none of the people that we think were involved in this were involved in the other robberies of Abe.
May I ask, why is that?
We have an idea who was involved in the Lebewohl homicide. But unfortunately, there's not enough now for an arrest, especially after 27 years. But we have an idea who was involved in the setting it up and doing the actual robbery.
How come nearly 30 years later, this hasn't been solved?
I don't understand it. I don't. It was, it was 8 in the morning. It was on a really busy street. I think people have to know something. I wonder if they're afraid to come forward, but I don't know why. Somebody said to me there were so many homeless people, maybe it was a homeless person who did it. I was like, no, that I know isn't the case, because they all knew my father.
New tonight, a new reward in a murder from the 90s. The crime shocked the city 20 years ago today, and it haunts the detectives still working the 2nd Avenue Deli cold case.
We had witnesses coming up to the kazoo with identifications. The police artists drew sketches. Every sketch that they drew based on someone's testimony looked different.
I was like, there was no DNA in the truck? Well, yeah, there were lots of handprints in the truck. Everybody touched things in the truck. I used to think that if this had happened now, they would have found the killers immediately.
Piccioni and Abe's family believe a woman who may have known Abe and possibly someone who worked with him could be involved in the killing. Police have not publicly named any suspect or person of interest in the case.
For the both of you to replay this again, like, what's that like?
It's interesting. When my father died, I thought I wanted to die. I could not imagine life without him. And I think the only thing that stopped me from dying was that I had children, my mother needed me, but I never imagined that I'd ever be able to go on.
I didn't want to die. You know what I wanted? To get those sons of bitches. Same way I still want to do it. And I actually don't want to kill them. I want them to suffer.
I want them to stay in jail. I want them to suffer. I know that the detectives feel personally connected to this. I know that, even today, they're working on it. It's not like a closed case that is in some shoebox, stored away. I don't know, but I do know that even if it is solved, it's not going to bring closure.
Why is that?
Because he's gone. I just think that if he could meet his grandchildren, if he could meet his great nieces and nephews, he missed out on all that. I just want justice to be done, but I don't know what it would bring for me. I think about looking the person in the eye, and in my head, I've imagined this over and over again, of having my children, my grandchildren, Josh and Jeremy, their children, sitting there in the courtroom and making this person look at us.
The Lebewolds are a family of fighters, and you're still fighting for justice. You're still fighting for answers. Do you look forward to the day where you can stop fighting?
Yes, absolutely.
You're alive. If you want to continue living, you have to do certain things. That's really what it involves. You can't lie down and say, I give up.
You're now 12 years retired. This case still eats you. You still talk about it as passionately and want to be involved in it as ferociously as you were back when you were in uniform. What does this case mean to you?
I am so fond of the Lebewolds. They're such a wonderful family that, I can't forget about the case. And I confer with my partner in Manhattan DA's office, who I worked with in homicide, and he's still actively investigating the case. And we'll talk about, what direction he's going to go in. And I would like nothing more than to bring closure to the family.
Abe's family kept the business going at its original location until January 2006, when, in typical New York fashion, it closed its doors due to a dispute with its landlord.
The family moved from downtown to midtown and even opened a second location
uptown on Lexington Avenue, which is where we are now.
It happened slowly, but the deli moved on. They continued on.
Whatever we're doing successfully is also luck. It's not because we're smart. It's luck.
Food's pretty good though, too.
That's true.
The deli's famous recipes continue to inspire and be talked about. In 2021, their famous matzo ball soup was featured on CBS Sunday Morning.
What would Abe say about all this today?
Are you crazy? He says, did you learn from me? You're crazy. That's what my brother would say to me. I remember saying to my wife, how do you walk away from this? We have an obligation. There's a tradition. We just can't close up shop. If anybody has any information, please give it to the police, New York City Police Department. Your name will be kept confidential, and there is a reward.
Following Abe's unsolved murder, the city named a small park after him in his old neighborhood of the Lower East Side.
And to conclude, I'd like to toast you with a traditional deli drink, seltzer. L'chaim, to life.